HaShem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah. Bruchim habayim. And as you can see from the title, or at least part of the title, for those of you that are going to be watching tomorrow or the following days, the Rabbanut versus Reform. What does this have to do with anything? Let's see. The parasha says, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha, b'kol sha'arecha, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha leshvatecha, v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek. Judges and officers shall you appoint in all of your cities, which HaShem your God gives you for your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. This, in essence, is the Torah commandment that Am Yisrael must have judges. We have to have batei din. Now, of course, in those days, we had the Moshe Rabbeinu as the official Sanhedrin, and then later on, we had the Sanhedrin of all of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. But since the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, we do not have a Sanhedrin, but nonetheless, the commandment to have a bet din is still applicable and still instituted. Not the same, we don't have the ability to have the capital punishment, but nonetheless, there is a bet din in virtually every Jewish community that is standing on a solid foundation has a bet din. And here we have a Torah commandment that this is something that is critical and not a suggestion, not something that perhaps you could, perhaps you couldn't. This is one of those things where if you don't have a bet din in a town, you simply don't have a Jewish community, because without a bet din, you're not really going to know what to do. But as we said many times, without having chachamim in general, and not just the local chachamim, but having the Gdolei Ador, having the sages of the generation, the rabbanut in Eretz Yisrael, the great sages around the world that are accepted and acknowledged by other chachamim as the Gdolim, and not just by their friends, but rather by the all communities as the Gdolei Ador. These are the wings of Am Yisrael. Now, of course, throughout all of the generations, this is not something that started recently, but throughout all of the generations, the greater the rabbis, the more enemies they had. Starting with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, the Navi of the Nevi'im, the prophet of all prophets, the king. He was not someone that did not have enemies. Anyone that read the Chumash even one time in their life saw how many enemies Moshe Rabbeinu had, starting with the people themselves, the very same people that he helped free them from slavery, ended up calling him an adulterer and a thief, and all types of other horrific names. And of course, the Gemara says that in Masechet Megillah that after Moshe Rabbeinu died, that the people truly understood what gift they had, what zchut they had to have such a person among them. Needless to say, lead them. And from there we learned that it takes the students 40 years to truly understand what the rabbi said. But nonetheless, Moshe Rabbeinu had an endless amount of enemies. Korach, Datan ve'Aviram, obviously went to battle with him and in public. And David HaMelech had countless enemies, including even family members, his own children. You had all types of enemies of Am Yisrael, but as the Pasuk says, Me'arsayich u'me'arvayich b'mech yitzeu, that your conquerors, your destroyers will come from within you, meaning that the biggest enemy that the Jewish people have ever had was not the Nazis, was not the Ishmaelim, was not the Christians, but rather was ourselves, was our own people. We have been our own biggest enemy since the beginning. We caused ourselves to lose the Bet HaMikdash twice, and we still do it every single day because of our own people. And not our own people disagreeing on whether you should keep Shabbat based on Rashi, on Rabbeinu Tam, but rather based on the ones that wanted to always reform Judaism and change it into whatever fit personal agendas. And the reform movement, as what it's called today and for the last couple of hundred years, may Hashem uproot them from the world, was not something new. We had the Sadducees and the Sadducees. We had all types of reformers throughout all of the generations, the ones that became mityavnim, became Greeks. We had all types of different versions of Zionism, the Giborim, and we had all types of false messiahs. We had, of course, the worst of them all, Yoshke, Jesus of Nazareth, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro. We had Shabtai Tzvi. We had countless people that followed Shabtai Tzvi, and in fact, until this day, there are people that are following this false Messiah, even though he himself converted to Islam and became a completely foreign to us, as foreign gets, but he was not finished even after he died. We had Yaakov Frank, Imach Shemo v'Zichro, was the continuation of Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah, which B'ezrat Hashem maybe perhaps will bring a story about him later today. But there's always been enemies of Judaism. We've had them throughout all of the generations. And really, the only reason why Judaism exists today is not because of modern day Israel that was established in 1948, but rather because of the original 1948 of Avraham Avinu, where Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Avraham Avinu, Avraham Ohavai, Avraham Ohavai is my lover. Why is he my lover? Because he loves my commandments and he teaches it to his household. Meaning that since the beginning, since Avraham Avinu, the only reason why the Jewish people continued to survive and to outlive their enemies, whether within or out, whether it's the Amalek and the Ishmaelim and the Christian missionaries, or it's the reformers that were born to Jewish mothers in many cases, that are trying to destroy and uproot Judaism, but still keep the title, still keep the brand. And the reality is that the only reason why we continue to outlive all of them, despite them murdering us, both spiritually and physically, is because of those that are lovers of the mitzvot, those that are staying loyal to the mitzvot. And the Torah commands us to have these judges, these officers, these shoftim, these shotrim, that are going to keep us, in essence, at bay, away from our own Yetzirah. Give us a fence around the fence, where even though you have the fence of the Torah that tells you what to do and what not to do, the Torah commands us to also listen to Da'at Torah of the sages, of the Chachamim of the generation, of all the generations, as every generation is going to have leaders that are like the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, not one and not two, but perhaps many, and nonetheless we have an obligation to listen to them. Where is that obligation? It's in many places in the Torah, but one of them is in this week's Parashat Shoftim, where it not only starts off with this commandment, but it even goes further. In chapter 17, verse number 9 and on, it says, "You shall come to the Kohanim, to the Levites, and to the judge." Which judge? The very same judge, that Gdol Ador, that big rabbi, that Dayan, that we talked about in the beginning of the Parasha. So you should come to the Kohanim, to the Levites, and to the judge, who will be in those days. Which days? Days of Moshe Rabbeinu? Obviously, if it's in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, it would say today. And those days means forever, until Mashiach comes. It will be in those days, you shall inquire, and they will tell you the words of judgment. Meaning, there's no such thing as I'm going to paskin my own halacha because I think I know better than the Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to paskin my own halacha because I think I'm smart. No. Once the Gdolei Adol say, this is how we psak, we all accept the Shulchan Aruch, that's what Klal Yisrael accepts. If you're Ashkenazi, you have by the custom of the Ramah, and if you're Sfaradi, you're with the psak of Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Bet Yosef. And of course, in order to know how to apply these rules into today, you need poskim of today to show you how to apply the original law into today for things that perhaps did not exist at that time, whether it be electricity or flying from place to place, and how you deal with the hours and the changes, the whole issue of time zones, and so on and so forth. The point is that you have to have the Gedolim, you have to have the Beit Din that is going to, in essence, rule over the people. And you have to accept their judgments. If there is a altercation between two Jews, whether it be business or otherwise, they have to go to the Beit Din. You're not allowed to go to a civil court unless one of the parties rejects the invitation of the Beit Din, which at that point would put that person on cherem. That person would not be, no one's allowed to do business with them anymore. No one's allowed to count them in minyan. And then you're allowed to take that person to a civil court. You'll have a permission from the Beit Din. But the point is that you have, if you go to a Beit Din, the Beit Din gives a judgment. You have to accept the Beit Din's judgment. Even if you disagree with it and you know that you're right and you feel that you're right, whatever the judgment is, that's what you go by. Why? Because that's what Torah commands us to. It's not a rabbinical enactment, it's a biblical enactment. To follow the rabbis is not a rabbinical enactment like the Christian missionaries say, but rather it's a biblical commandment from where we see today in this week's parasha. So you shall come to the Kohanim, to the Levites, to the judges who will be in those days. You shall inquire and they will tell you the words of judgment. You shall do according to the word that they will tell you from the place that HaShem will choose. And you shall be careful to do accordingly to everything that they will teach you, according to the teaching that they will teach you, and according to the judgment that they will say to you. This is also one of the many sources for the oral Torah. Of course, the oral Torah is not something it's not called oral Torah in the written Torah. There is, for whatever reason or another, people believe that if you don't find the word oral Torah or Torah Shebaal Peh in the written Torah, that means that it didn't exist. It's a very high level of stupidity and ignorance in this generation, nonetheless. But the point is that Torah Shebaal Peh is the term that the sages used because it's called many different things. Sometimes it's simply insinuated. One of the places that it's insinuated as teachings. The teachings of these rabbis, these judges. What are they going to tell you? The teachings of the written Torah? Obviously, you don't need the judges to tell you what the teachings of the written Torah is. You have it in front of you. You need to know how to interpret the teachings of the written Torah, which is the oral Torah. And you have to listen to everything that they tell you, everything that they teach you, it says over here. According to the teachings that they will teach you and according to the judgment that they will say to you. Shall you do? You shall not deviate from the words that they will tell you right or left. Now, what if somebody doesn't feel like doing it? What if somebody decides to tell the world, listen, I know that the sages said that you have to cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu practically in every single day of your life, every single prayer that you make. That's technically what you're supposed to do. When we say vidui, as Sfaradim, we say vidui, and many Ashkenazim today that take the Nusach of the Arizal also say vidui every day. We say Chatanu, Avinu, Pashanu. In essence, the reality is you're supposed to cry. I sinned Hashem. That's where it's not just for Slichot and for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to cry. And Tisha B'Av. No, you're supposed to cry every single day in reality. If you look at some of the prayers of the tzaddikim and how they prayed every day, typical mincha on an average Wednesday, they would cry their heart out much more than the best among us will cry on Tisha B'Av. Why? Because that's how you pray. But of course, most people are not going to get to that level, but the reality is we're supposed to cry. We're supposed to follow what everything that Hashem says, and we know that we sometimes fail. As the Torah itself says, tzaddik falls 7 times and gets up. Even someone that's righteous falls 7 times and gets up. Why is he a tzaddik? Because he continues to get up. And he uses that fall as leverage in order to get himself to a higher, so he doesn't fall in the same way every time. Each time it's a new fall, it's a new obstacle. But nonetheless, when the sages tell us what they tell us, we have to follow what they say. And if some superhero decides that he doesn't have, you don't have to listen to the Shulchan Aruch, and you don't have to pray like everybody else, and you don't have to keep like everybody else, and you could just listen to him and he knows better than everybody else. Nobody in the world, 90% of the Jews, they arrogantly say, 90% of the rabbis in the world don't even know what Judaism is. He knows, never even completed the Shas even one time in his life, but he knows better than the Gedolei Ador. He knows better than the most righteous people that ever lived. He knows. Why? Because he likes to ride a motorcycle, or he has a really long beard, and he likes to tell people that God needs you, or he has a lot of friends from the Christian world and the Muslim world, and all of these heretics that are out there in the world. Unfortunately, they continue coming up out of the ground like worms after rain. Or the guy tells you, listen, you can do whatever you want, and paskin the way you want, and this and that. And where did you learn this from? From the zoo that you run in the museum? Where do you know all of this from? You're better than all of the biggest Gedolei Ador? Unfortunately, many people are so arrogant that they don't even know what a Gedolei Ador is, but they still think that they're better than them. And here we have, Torah is commanding us to listen to the rabbis, but not just any rabbi. Of course, you have to listen to rabbis that are Talmidei Chachamim, but even more so when it's talking about the issues of the Gedolei Ador, the leaders of the generation, the heads of the Beit Din. And what happens if somebody says God needs you? Well, that's not in the Masoret, that's not in the Torah. Yeah, but I think God needs you. I think God needs you. What if somebody says you don't have to listen to the Shulchan Aruch? That's just one opinion. You can listen to other opinions. Yeah, but the big rabbi said no. The big rabbi said you have to accept the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, but I don't think so because I don't think so because I don't think so. So what happens to those people that go against the sages? Torah says at the time of the Sanhedrin, not today because we don't have a Sanhedrin unfortunately, but nonetheless at the time of the Sanhedrin, what would happen to those people? What would happen to a person that would make a rabbinical violation on purpose? A rabbinical violation. A lot of times people say, is this rabbinical, rabbi, or is this a biblical mitzvah? I ask them all the time, why? Well, I don't know. If it's just rabbinical, then it's okay. So, do you understand what you're saying even? No. Oh, okay. Do you know what the punishment is for biblical mitzvah? Isn't it death penalty? Not always. Stealing is a biblical violation. Not allowed to steal. Not allowed to steal. If you're a Jew, you steal, you get caught, you have to pay double. You don't get killed. You don't get whipped. You have to pay double. If you don't get caught, but you hand the money back, you admit that you stole, that's it, you're finished. You absolved, you did tshuva. But if you violate any rabbinical enactment, the Kiruv, death penalty. All rabbinical violations that you make on purpose, death penalty. And this is what it says in the Torah over here. And the man who will act with willingness, not listening to the Kohen who stands there to serve HaShem your God, or to the judge, that man shall die, and you shall destroy the evil from among Israel. Why is such a harsh punishment for a rabbinical violation? Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us. So the entire nation shall listen and fear, and they shall not act willfully anymore. There's a specific reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave power to the rabbis, power to the sages. Why? Without the sages having power, Am Yisrael will not survive a week. That's just a reality. All of the ups and downs we've had in Judaism throughout the last few thousand years, we always stayed with a few small communities that had strength. Why did they have strength despite the poverty and the famine and the disease and the anti-Semitism and the pogroms and the inquisitions and the Holocaust? Why? Because the rabbis had power. The rabbi said, Paskin, that's what we do. That's what we do, like good little babies. That's what we do. But then you're going to have the superheroes that want to reform. You're going to have the superheroes that want to reform, that want you to marry man and man, like two apes. They want you to marry woman and woman, like two rabbits. They want you to make everything kosher, including the pig and the camel and all the other forbidden animals. They want you to be able to, anybody decide who's converting, who's not, even if you don't even look Jewish, you don't act Jewish, and perhaps you're not even Jewish, but you want to decide who's going to convert, who's kosher and who's not. That's what the reformers want to do. Torah says people like that, at the time of the Sanhedrin, will get a death penalty. What about today? What do we do with them today? The Gemara in Masechet Bava Metzia says, don't worry. HaKadosh Baruch Hu already knew at the time he built the Bet HaMikdash, at the time he created the world, that the Bet HaMikdash will be destroyed. Am Yisrael will sin, and he has to destroy the Bet HaMikdash instead of destroying the people. But nonetheless, he already instituted a law ahead of time. The Torah is before the world. This law says, even if there isn't a Sanhedrin that will institute a death penalty, do not worry, the Gemara says. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will institute death penalty. If you see an ox running over a person, that's the equivalent of stoning. You see a person falling off of a building collapsing somehow in the middle of the night, stoning. Burning in fire, that's the fire. You see a person drowning, that's the strangulation. All four measures of the death penalty that are instituted in the Torah are still applicable even without a bed din. Only difference is HaShem's the bed din that's going to institute the death penalty. There's the bed din here, but that bed din is limited because we don't have the Sanhedrin. But the bed din, the judgment itself, is never limited. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. And this week's parasha says something unbelievable. Unbelievable, Rabotai. Where it says over here, Rabotai, who's the biggest tzaddik initially? Who's the biggest tzaddik at the time? Obviously, it's the prophets, Moshe Rabbeinu. He's the king. Then it says in this week's parasha, if you guys want an actual king, aside from Moshe Rabbeinu, you want a king later on. This king has to be picked by HaShem. Now, this king is not picked because of how good looking he is, or how smart he is, or how nice his family is, or that his father's a rabbi. He himself has to be a tzaddik. And despite being a tzaddik, and a gadol, and kodesh kodeshim, he has to have a Sefer Torah with him at all times. Where it says here that he has to write for himself 2 copies of this Torah. 2 copies, 2 scrolls. He has to have 2 Sefer Torah. And it shall be with him. And he shall read from it all of his days of his life. All the days of his life. That he will learn to fear Hashem his God. To observe all of the words of this Torah and its decrees to perform them. Meaning even if he is the king, he has to learn the same shiur about Yirat Shamayim, the shiur about Gehenom, shiur about Tikkun HaBrit, shiur about fearing of the Almighty, just like everybody else on a regular basis. On a regular basis, has to learn about Yirat Shamayim. And even he himself has to be worried not to sin. Why? He has to learn this so his heart does not become arrogant over his brethren and not turn from the commandments right or left, meaning he himself has to comply with the rabbinical enactments. He himself has to comply with all of the Torah commandments. Now, of course, Abutai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us prophets throughout the generations, but unfortunately there are also false prophets. False prophets that sometimes had powers, false prophets that even today have power. Perhaps not the mystical powers of the past, but the power of speech, where they can convince people to go against Hashem while convincing them that they're actually doing a mitzvah. These false prophets are still here today, unfortunately. And of course, there are also good prophets, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, a prophet from your midst, from your brethren like me, Moshe Rabbeinu says, shall Hashem your God establish for you. To him shall you hearken. You always have to listen to the right prophets, not the false prophets. False prophets, what happens to the false prophet? But the prophet who willfully speaks the word in my name, that which I not command him to speak, or who shall speak in the name of the gods of others, that prophet shall die. Again, same parasha, Kadosh Baruch Hu again tells us about how people get death penalty. 3,333 years of death penalties, but yet somehow people want to convince you that Hashem loves everybody and you shouldn't hate anyone. I'm not really understanding how somebody can claim to read the Torah and actually say such a stupid statement. 3,000 years of death penalties in the Torah instituted, commanded by us. And yet people say you should love everybody even if they hate God. You should love the reformers even though they're destroying the Torah and Am Yisrael already for a few hundred years. You should love them. Why should I love them? Oh, they're Jews. What makes them Jewish? What makes them Jewish? Oh, the Torah says if their mother is Jewish, then they're Jewish. Yeah, but the Torah that says that, they don't believe in that Torah. They don't believe the Torah is divine. They don't believe they have to follow the Torah. But we'll get to that in a moment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that these false prophets that say God needs you, these false prophets that say that Gehenom is only 12 months for everybody, no matter who you are, even if you're Adolf Hitler, if you're Mechalel Shabbat, if you waste seed, if you committed adultery, if you made all types of crimes, no matter what, maximum punishment is 12 months. The Ramban, one of the Gdolei Olam, one of the greatest sages that ever walked on the face of the earth, says in the Sefer that the person that says that Gehenom is limited to 12 months is 100% an apikoros and has no share of the God of Israel. You can't count them in minyan. You cannot count such a person in the minyan that says that you have Gehenom is maximum 12 months. But can I learn Torah from him, Rabbi, even though he says that there's only 12 months Gehenom? I don't know. Ask the Ramban. Ramban knows better than me. I'm just learning. Ramban says you can't learn from him. In fact, Ramban says you can't even count them in minyan. So you're still asking the same question of whether you should learn from him? But why is God so vicious? Why is that vicious? Why is that vicious? Well, I don't want to go to Gehenom for 12 months. So do tshuva. Don't make sins. Why does it have to be more than 12 months? The Ramban writes, Rabotai Karim, and this is actually one of the places that's actually translated to English for anybody that wants to read it. It's called Shara Gemul. It's the writings of the Ramban, Nachmanides. And he says that saying that HaShem has given us a maximum sentence of 12 months of Gehenom turns him into, chas v'shalom, an evil God. Why an evil God? Because if you're giving the same sentence to someone that desecrated Hashem's name, desecrated Torah, desecrated Shabbat, and did all of these sins, as you do to somebody that made petty crimes, that's an evil God. And if you give the same sentence to somebody that violated Shabbat one time versus somebody that violated Shabbat 1,000 times, that's an evil God. If you give the same sentence to somebody that murdered one person versus somebody that murdered 1,000 people, the same sentence, that's an evil God. And we don't have an evil God. We have a just God. To say that a maximum sentence is 12 months, the Ramban says, means that the person is an apikos. Person that believes that is a heretic, 100%. No question about it. And who's going to go against the Ramban? You with your little funny hat? Or your motorcycle? With your long beard? Call yourself a Hasid? With your Arab friends and your Christian best friends? Who's going to go against the Ramban? That's what Torah says. And anyone that goes against the rabbis, Torah itself says that people like that get death penalty from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, of course, there's a lot of conspiracy in the world. There's a lot of things happening in the world with this coronavirus, with the vaccine. Some say that the coronavirus is not as bad. Some people say that the vaccine is much worse than the coronavirus. There's a lot of confusion. I've told you 1,000 times already. There are chachamim, gdolei olam, that say to take the vaccine, and there are gdolei olam chachamim that say don't take the vaccine. Whoever listens to the chachamim will have the protection of the Torah, meaning that regardless of which side you take, if you're taking that side, of whether take the vaccine or not take the vaccine, not because you watched a bunch of YouTube videos and read a bunch of articles you don't understand and watched a bunch of people that call themselves experts even though no one's ever heard of them in their life. If that's the reason why you're taking the vaccine or not taking it, then you, my friend, can rely on those people. If you're taking it or not taking it because the Gdolei Adol said to take it or not to take it, you choose whichever side, you'll have the protection of the Torah. Why? Because the Torah is what protects you. The Torah, not the vaccine, and not the flu, and not the opposite. Torah is what protects you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes nature for the sake of the Chachamim. Where do we see that in the Torah? This week's parasha. This week's parasha says to us, Rabotai Karim, that if there is a person that hates his fellow, if there will be a person that hates his fellow, this is chapter 19, verse 11. and ambushes him and rises up against him and strikes him, and he mortally and the person dies, and that person runs to the cities of refuge, he killed somebody. But now he wants to run where he knows there's a bunch of Jews over there, some elders, some tzaddikim over there. He wants some refuge. Why? This is a city of refuge where if somebody killed somebody on accidentally, they protect them. But this guy killed him on purpose. He killed him on purpose. But he still wants to go to the city of refuge to get protection. So you say, wait, he's a Jew. You should love everybody, right? He's a Jew. He puts on tefillin every day. He keeps Shabbat. He donates a lot of money, but he killed this guy that was his business competition. He killed this guy that he didn't like him because he's Ashkenazi, or he's Litai, or he's Sfaradi, or he's Hasidish, or he's Chabad. I hate him. I killed him. Oh, so you think he did a mitzvah? What, you want protection from the Jewish people? He goes to the Beit Din. He wants protection. Torah says, then the elders of the city shall send and take him from there and place him in the hand of the Redeemer of the blood, and he shall die. You're not allowed to protect that person. In fact, you have to put it in the hands of the person that's going to kill him. Why? He's a murderer. He's a murderer. Yeah, but he's a Jew. He's a Jewish murderer. He's a Jewish murderer. There are certain times that the Torah commands us to kill people. Now, of course, today we don't have that ability, but nonetheless, it's still a law that's instituted in the world by the hand of HaShem. Now, what happened to those people that want to do bad? They want to create a virus that's going to kill people. They want to create a vaccine that's going to kill people. They want to do all types of things that are going to kill people. Conspiracy theory, conspiracy itself, New World Order, all types of things scaring people. Let me tell you something. Torah answers that too. Where does it answer it? Right after this section. Where the Torah says in chapter 19, verse 15 and on, a single witness shall not stand up against any man for any iniquity or for any error regarding any sin that he may commit, by the testimony of 2 witnesses or by the testimony of 3 witnesses shall a matter be confirmed. If a false witness stands against a man to speak up against him, spuriously against him, then the 2 men and those who have the grievance shall stand before HaShem, before the Kohanim and the judges who will be in those days. The judges shall inquire thoroughly, and behold, the testimony was false testimony. He testified falsely against his fellow. You shall do to him as he conspired to do to his fellow, and you shall destroy the evil from your midst. Now, what does this all mean? In the Jewish world, there's no such thing as taking the testimony of only a single witness. Everything, before there's any death penalty, before any judgment, you have to have 2 witnesses or more. 2 witnesses, 3 witnesses. That's it. One witness comes, says, I saw it, I was there, he murdered, he raped, he did this. We can't believe him. The guy that was with the wife. The guy is married, and his wife cheated on him. Now the guy himself that went with the wife, comes and says to the Beit Din, I was with the wife. We don't believe him. We don't have to believe him. Even if the wife by herself comes, we don't have to believe her. It's one witness. We don't have to believe him. Here we says over here, now what if it's death penalty? He says, oh, he killed him. He killed him. If it's one witness, we don't take his testimony. 2 witnesses say he killed him. We saw him. Death penalty. Now what about if the Torah says, what about if 2 people said, yeah, we saw him, he killed him, and right before they gave him a death penalty, 2 new witnesses come. 2 new witnesses come and say, hey, hold on a second. You're about to kill this guy. He's innocent. Yeah, but we have 2 witnesses that said that he killed him. Yeah, they're liars. What? Liars? They're Jewish. They keep Shabbat, put on tefillin, they give tzedakah. Yeah, they're liars too. They're liars. They give tzedakah. How are they liars? How can you prove they're liars? We approve they're liars. Why? Look at my phone. Picture, date. They were with us at the time of the murder. Meaning, there was no way for them to witness the murder. The Beit Din reviews this. The Beit Din reviews this and says, yeah, these are false witnesses, and now, Rabotai, the death penalty goes on them, those false witnesses. This in itself is, for somebody that does not understand, is a wonder of wonders. Why? Why is it a wonder of wonders? Because here HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that there are times that he will get himself involved with free will. There are specific times that he'll get himself involved with free will, where logic, Chachamim tell us, logic would dictate that if two witnesses come and tell you different what the existing witnesses said to you, what would everybody say? No, if this was the righteous judgment, Hashem would have sent you first. He sent two other people who told us that the truth. So why should we automatically believe the new witnesses? Why should we automatically believe the new witnesses? Not only believe the new witnesses, but actually give the punishment to the original witnesses. They automatically become the false witnesses. Meaning, if there's originally two witnesses that say that the person is guilty, and now two new witnesses come, after there's already been, that's it, it's judged already. We have all proofs, statements, everything. Two new witnesses come and say, no, they're liars. They were with us. They couldn't have been at the place to witness it. There's no way that the guy, that they're saying the truth. Automatically, the Beit Din believes the new witnesses. Automatically. The Beit Din believes the new witnesses. Why? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I am the one. I am the one that runs the world. If I wanted the person to die, it's not going to be because people told on him, or because he took a vaccine, or because he got the virus, or because he lived at a certain place at a certain time. If I want him to die, it's in my hands and my hands alone. No one can kill you unless I say so. So even if somebody tries to say, you should do this, you should take this, I'm going to send somebody else. And even more so, I'm going to have a law in the Torah and a law in nature that the second witness always have to be believed. Always have to be believed. Meaning, the second witness is it's in essence the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Second set of witnesses is a hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu in essence telling us outright in the Torah, there is no death or suffering that's away from my reach. It's always my hand pulling the trigger. Always my hand. There is no such thing as a mass conspiracy to kill everybody. A mass conspiracy to make everybody not able to have children. A mass conspiracy to make everybody slaves in a new world order. No such thing. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to live, nobody in the world, including the whole world, can change that. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a person to die, no power in the world can stop it, including the entire world. This is why it baffles me of how rabbis are getting involved in the conspiracy of all this craziness. We have to have a community meeting. We have to have an event. We have to do what we can as our ishtadlut to go fight against the power that be that are going to force everyone to take the vaccine. Are you insane? Are you out of your mind? Are you trying to cause trouble? Be quiet. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, Ribono Shel Olam. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to protect us, he'll protect us. If he doesn't, he won't. What you can do that's useful is perhaps encourage the community to do tshuva. And then you'll give HaKadosh Baruch Hu a reason to protect us, no matter what the criminals want to do, whether they want to give a new virus or a new vaccine or a combination of both. It'll make a difference. This, Rabotai, is how Am Yisrael has survived for all of these thousands of years. But somehow people have forgotten the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that runs the world. Now, when we have the leaders of Am Yisrael, we see that the leaders of Am Yisrael are not involved in this conspiracy mumbo-jumbo. Why? Because the leaders of Am Yisrael are too busy fighting for Am Yisrael. You look at the article that came out, the biggest and most extraordinary united event happened in Eretz Yisrael. All of the greatest rabbis got together. Both Rishon LeZion, Rav Lau, Rav Yitzchak Yosef, the Ashkenazi Rabbanim, the Sephardi Rabbanim, the Gaon Rabbi Yehuda Deri, the Rabbi Yosef Efrati, the Rav Shmuel Eliyahu, I mean, literally, Geonei Olam, from all parts of the Haredi world got together. You think they're fighting about coronavirus? You think they're arguing about the vaccine? Absolutely not. What are they crying about? What are they all gathering about? Hundreds of Geonim. I don't know if there's been a meeting like this in decades. Hundreds of them screaming and yelling, not at each other, for each other, uniting with each other. Why? Fighting against the new reform that's happening in the world, especially in Eretz Yisrael, where the government, Imach Shimam Vezichram, the Zionist government that's spearheaded by haters of the Torah, haters of Judaism that can even have the audacity to call themselves Jews, one of them with a little penny kippah on his head, pretends to be religious. These Reshaim Arurim are trying to create a major reform. Cancel the kashrut, the rabbanut kashrut in Eretz Yisrael. Say no, where the government will handle the kashrut. Do you know how to determine if something is tarif? You know how to check the lungs. You know how to check if something is kosher or not. Do you even know which animals are kosher? Because you eat pig in your house. Do you even know how? How are you going to know? No, we're going to have experts. We're going to have scientists. We're going to have professors. Oversee the kashrut, oversee the gerut, oversee the conversions. Wait, so you're going to tell me that two non-religious people are going to determine if somebody's religious enough to be Jewish? It's the most absurd thing in the world. It's like the person that's a high school dropout is going to be, and is actually, in fact, the head of the educational department in Eretz Yisrael. It's the most bizarre thing. You can't even make this stuff up. And now they want to change the kashrut. They want to convert everyone. They want to marry everyone. You want to marry a sofa, go marry a sofa. You want to marry man and man, marry man and man. You want to marry a woman with woman, marry woman with woman. Jews, non-Jews, don't make a difference. But they want to put the kosher stamp on it. They don't just want to do it like the Goyim do it. They want to put Judaism on it. They want to give a section of the Kotel to the reformers. They want to give powers to the anti-Torah. But you think that's only in Eretz Yisrael? Just today I got an article from a dear friend who says President Joe Biden appointed a progressive rabbi, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, to the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, raising protests from American Jews. Why would having a rabbi next to the president of the U.S. be a bad thing? Because this Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum is a homosexual woman who is famous for hating Israel and mourning over Hamas terrorists. This Reshait Arura, this wicked, disgusting excuse of a human being, Sharon Kleinbaum, is a woman that pretends to be a rabbi who preaches against Israel on a regular basis, even despite the fact that her own congregants already have had it. Somehow she still has a job. She celebrates the LGBTQ Sodom and Gomorrah because she's part of it. She herself is married to a woman. I wouldn't be surprised if she's married to a few dogs too. And she mourns over the Hamas terrorists that bombed the Jews, that killed the Jewish people. And she dares to call herself a rabbi, leading a congregation, and supports Omar Shakiri Machshima Vezichra, Linda Sarsour Machshima Vezichra, Tamika Malou, all these anti-Israel people, all these famous anti-Semites in Congress. Ilan Omar Machshima Vezichra, she supports them. But yet, she calls herself a Jewish rabbi. She calls herself a Jewish rabbi. She's anti-Torah. She's openly homosexual. She helps build the homosexuality in the world by herself practicing it publicly and speaking for them and promoting them and so on. On top of it, she's not only anti-Torah, she's anti the Jewish people, even if they're secular, if they live in Eretz Yisrael, or they even love Jews. But yet, she dares to call herself a rabbi. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. And yet, the Israeli government wants her people to be responsible of the conversions in Israel, to be responsible of the kashrut in Israel, to be responsible of the religion in Israel. They want her, this Allah, this Zonah, they want her to be the head of the rabbinical world, of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. They want people like her to be the Rishon LeZion. That's what the Gedolei Hador are fighting. They're not fighting about or crying over this vaccine or the coronavirus. Why? They already know it's the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The question is, when are we going to know? When is Klal Yisrael going to stop wasting their time watching these stupid videos where every other day there's a new expert no one's ever heard of who discovered the conspiracy or discovered the cure or discovered something else? I don't discovered America all over again. No one ever heard of this person in the world, but he's somehow a worldwide expert and he knows better than everybody else. Or suddenly the politician that loves the people but is not lining his pocket. The honest politician. I mean, when are people going to stop wasting their time? Or the best yet, the people that are simply every other day coming up with new letters. The heads of Am Yisrael are against the vaccine. And today I got the heads of the Sephardic Jewry are against the vaccine. They show you a piece of paper. Now, Baruch Hashem, this young student, he didn't know how to read Hebrew, so he sent it to me. He said, Rabbi, what do you think of this? I said, well, I don't know. The title is wrong. Well, why is the title wrong? It says the head of the Sephardic Jewry are against the vaccine. All of the people that signed this letter, not a single one of them has a Sephardic bone in it. I don't even know if these people eat jachnun. I don't know if these people know what are even allowed to eat harif. They're all Ashkenazi. What's Sephardi? They're relying on the ignorance of people. All of these people spreading these letters and these stupid videos about the conspiracy or about to take the vaccine. Both sides are ridiculous. They're not realizing that the most damaging part of this plague we've had in the world over the last year has been the fake news, has been the fact that people have become so obsessed with following one side or the other, or both sides, they're simply crazy, that they've become fanatic. They don't even learn Torah anymore. They barely even go to shul. They barely learn anything. They barely practice anything. All they can talk about is the vaccine, the conspiracy, the New World Order, and simply forget that it's all the hand of HaShem. These videos have consumed so much of people's brain, so much of people's time, so much of people's life. These newsletters, these magazines, these fake WhatsApp posts and letters, All of these things have consumed so much time, they're much worse than everybody, the whole world getting the virus. It was actually better off for the whole world to simply get the virus than for this to happen, all of this media that's happening. But every day, everybody is sharing with the world. Oh, we have an expert. He's an Orthodox Jew and he says it's poison. Oh, we have another expert. He's not even Jewish, but he's saying, you Jewish people, you're making a mistake. You should be listening to Moses. How he connects it, nobody knows, but he's a non-Jew. We should listen to him because he seems nice and he seems like he likes Jewish people. Like, literally, the level of stupidity in society today, especially our own communities, has risen to new all-time highs. Why? Less Torah, more foolishness. More idolatry. They've turned coronavirus into a form of idolatry. When they originally said, oh, you know, corona, the name, I think in Spanish or Greek or some other language, I don't know, it really is a crown, so this is really from God. No, it's not that. That's not the symbolic part that the corona is a crown, so therefore it's from God. That we already knew. The fact that it's a crown is because the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, don't turn this into a new crown. Don't turn this into a new king. Don't turn this into a new idol, you chamor, you idiots. Stop watching videos. Watch Torah, do tshuva, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He's the one that gives you the salvation. He's the one that wins the war. Where can I learn that, Rabbi? You can also learn it from this week's parasha. Also, Parashat Shoftina tells you to listen to the rabbis, listen to the sages. Tells you that when you listen to the sages, you're going to win. You're going to win each and every time. Why? Because chapter 20, verse number 4 says, Ki Adonai Elohechem ha'olech imachem lilachem lachem, im oivechem leoshia otchem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, for HaShem your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you with your enemies to save you. He fights with you and your enemies to save you. What do you think is going to save you? Some doctor nobody heard of? Some scientist that makes YouTube videos? Who's going to save you other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Hashem, give him a reason. Give him a reason, Ribono Shel Olam. Stop electing homosexuals to be your leaders. Stop electing people that are against the Torah to be your leaders. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the salvation. That's why we pray every single day, Rabotai Karim, in our Amidah. In our Amidah. Ashiva Shoftenu Karishona. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, restore our judges. As in the beginning, as in the time that you were the judge. As we had the Chachmei Israel, the judges. Bring us to those days. What do you mean bring us to those days? HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do it tomorrow. Why are we praying for it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, open our hearts so we see the truth and we accept Da'at Torah for what it is and stop trying to reform Judaism every other day. Please help us do tshuva. That's what we pray for every day. We pray to Hashem to help us do tshuva. Why? Because we're simply incapable. Incapable of doing it without His help. But the ones that stick to HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always win. Whether they take the vaccine or they don't take the vaccine. They already won because they listen to Da'at Torah. And those that listen to Da'at Torah, Rabotai, can escape the biggest tests. The biggest tests. 260 years ago, there was a Mashiach Sheker named Yaakov Frank. Shem Rashaim Yirkav. He said he was the continuation of Shabtai Tzvi, and he wasn't like the morons of today that make YouTube videos telling people that they're Mashiach. He was actually able to use all types of impure forces in order to make magic, which the Torah in this week's parasha forbids. It's death penalty. But nonetheless, people didn't know that he's using the powers of Tumah to make magic. But he wanted Am Yisrael to follow him. He didn't want just the Christians to follow him. He didn't want just the Arabs to follow him. He didn't want just the Gentiles to follow him. He wanted Am Yisrael to follow him. And that's when he got people to follow him. He showed them all types of powers, all types of miracles. Now, Rabotai, one of the eyewitnesses of this whole story is the one that wrote the story, the one that is part of the story. One of the Geonim of 260 years ago, one of the heads of the Sanhedrin at that time, heads of the Rabbanut, at that time, the Gaon Rabbi Yitzchak Shor writes himself, and this is quoted in Rabbi Ephraim's Doresh Tov, Parashat Re'eh, and he writes the story of what happened, where this Yaakov Frank goes to the powerful priests and says to them, the Jewish people are not following me. I want you to force the rabbis to debate me. Debate. That's all the kufrim like to debate. Why? I could fool them. I could manipulate them. I could do a lot of things with debate. Why don't you just write a letter? No, letters, they can think. They're not motivated. They're not intimidated. No. Debate. Live debate. He wants a live debate in front of the komer, in front of the priests. And whoever wins, that's who the priest will decree as the leader of the Jewish people. Of course, once the priests decree, there's nothing that the Jewish people could do about it. Why? Because they have also a powerful people that they could kill, cause harm to the Jewish people. So this Yaakov Frank causes the Senate, the head rabbis, the Bedin, which is headed by Rabbi Yitzchak Shor, to come to the debate. And they have all types of questions back and forth, and each time this Yitzchak Frank, this Yaakov Frank brings a issue, Rabbi Yitzchak Shor proves him wrong. But then he says to them, yeah, but come on, don't you understand that I can make miracles? I can make miracles. Rabbi Yitzchak Shor says to him, our Torah tells us we don't follow somebody because they can make miracles. We don't follow people because they can make miracles. We don't follow people because they're good speakers. We don't follow people because they are scientists. We don't follow people because they ride a motorcycle. We follow people because they have Da'at Torah. And if you don't have Da'at Torah, if we had the power, we would kill you. So, of course, Yaakov Frank has something prepared. The Reshaim are always prepared for something to fool everyone, all the naive, all the weaklings. He says, don't you understand that I can make miracles and I can even bring your two dead parents right over here in front of us? And they're going to tell you that I am right. They're going to tell you I'm the continuation of the real Mashiach of Shabtai Tzvi. Of course, the Gaon Rabbi Yitzchak Shor says to him, bring him! And suddenly, as he says it, two images come into the place. All of the people, all the And they see two people coming in, wearing these hoodies. And they take off the hoodies and they see these are, who? The parents of the tzaddik Rabbi Yitzchak Shor. His parents, they died years before. But they're here. And they're crying. They're saying, our dear son, yes, you have to listen to him. You have to listen to Yaakov Frank. He is the Mashiach. He is the truth. Look, he brought us to tell you. He brought us back from heaven to tell you. The Torah starts all over with him. Now, if you saw this, what would you do? I tell you what most people would do. I don't know what you would do. Most people, they start singing, Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Yeah. They fall into it. Yalla, let's go ask the Mashiach. He brought back the dead. Chachamim, do not act like idiots that fall for traps, even if the traps are convincing. Rabbi Yitzchak Shor, alav shalom, was Kodesh Kodashim, and he simply gave them the only answer that he can give them, the only answer that's needed. And he says to the two people that are saying they're his parents, they look exactly like his parents, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people witnessing this. And he says to them, Yaakov Frank says the Torah ends and starts with him. He's changing the Torah. You agree with him. So that means I don't have to honor you as my parents anymore. And if I don't have to honor my parents anymore, nothing will stop me from doing this. He takes his staff, tlach, tlach, on both of their heads. And all of a sudden, in front of hundreds of people, both of these people suddenly disappear inside their clothes. Everybody is astonished. They pick up the clothes and they remove them, and they see what's under this. 2 dead dogs. And even the priest, the idol worshiper, recognized at that moment that Yaakov Frank was a liar that was using witchcraft. Using witchcraft. He's no Mashiach, he's no nothing. He's a liar. And that, Rabotai, was a story not from thousands of years ago. It's a story that happened just 260 years ago, in the year Taf Kuf Yud Tet. Exactly 261, almost 262 years ago. Now, these types of stories are part of Klal Israel. Meaning that the tests are not just difficult because of some YouTube phenomenon, or some doctors that no one ever heard of, or some scientists, or some politicians, or some new world order of some kind. These types of tests have always been. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's me that's sending it to them. It's me that's sending it to you, and it's me that can heal it. Only if you listen to me. And listening to me means you have to listen to the Gdolei Ador. You have to listen to the giants among the giants. The giants. That's what's going to protect you. Why? When you listen to the reformers, all you're going to do is simply lose. All you're going to do is simply lose. It's simply a disaster. A disaster that has cost us millions of lives. Millions of lives. People believed the Jewish agency at the time of the Holocaust were the saviors of the Jewish people, led by the first president of Israel, Weizmann, Yimach Shimo v'zichro, Rasha Merusha. They thought that people like Dr. Kastner were the saviors of Hungary Jewry. Saviors, the Jewish agency. Why? They're Jews, they're collecting tons and tons of money. They love the Jewish people. Only later on does Am Yisrael find, through a lawsuit by a simple Orthodox Jew that's in the records today, there are books written about it, exposes the liars, that in reality it's the leaders, it's Ben Gurion, it's Weizmann, it's Sharet, it's all of these Reshaim from the Jewish agency, these Zionists. They actually killed the last million Jews of the Holocaust. They had an opportunity to free all of them. They had an opportunity. Eichmann, the Nazi, Yimach Shimo v'zichro, was willing to free 1 million Jews just to give them some trucks, coffee, and tea. That's it. They sabotaged the one guy that was looking to help them, just to make the deal. A guy that was working with them who thought that they were his heroes. A guy named Joel Brandt. Famous story. He went, they sabotaged him just to make sure that these 1 million Jews die in the Holocaust by the Nazis. And what happens? They become the president, the first president of Israel. Yimach Shimo v'zichro, Weizmann. Dr. Kastner, Yimach Shimo v'zichro. Ben Gurion, Yimach Shimo v'zichro. All of these people that manipulated the Torah in order to get the world to feel bad for them. But they're no different than the reformers of today, Rabotai Karim. No different. They take the Torah and use it like putty whenever it suits them. You have to stay away from those people, even if they call themselves religious, even if they call themselves orthodox, even if they call themselves Nevi'im, prophets. If they're going against the Torah, which is simple to know. Why? How do you know if they're going against the Torah if you're not a scholar? If Gdolei Ador, if the giants of the generation say, no, they're going against the Torah, by default, we listen to the Gdolei Ador and not to anybody else. Nobody else overrules the giants of the generation. Not the president of the country, not the head of the Jewish agency, Machshima Bezichram, not the Christians, not the reformers, not anybody. Why? The sages, there are wings. Without them, we crush and crumble, and we do not survive. When we listen to them, we will outlive all of our enemies. Why? Because through the mitzvah of listening to them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will come and fight your enemies for you. I will come. Your enemies want to conspire against you. I'll send new witnesses. I'll manipulate free will if I have to, just to protect you. Why? You listen to my kids. You will always be protected because of it. This is why, Rabotai Karim, I tell people, you want to take, you don't want to take, it doesn't make a difference. What you should work on is your emunat chachamim. Your emunat chachamim, your emunah in HaShem, your bitachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ashgacha pratit, divine providence. That's what's going to protect you from all of the nightmares that are happening in the world. Why? Because the enemy is coming in every corner. They're coming with a kippah, without a kippah. Male rabbi, female rabbi. Jewish, Gentile. Christian missionary, Messianic Jew, which is the same thing. They're coming in all forms and sizes. They're coming in America, in Israel, in England. They're coming as the head rabbi of England, Imach Shimo Mervis. Rasha Merusha was one of the biggest Christian missionaries in the missionary world, pretends to be a Jew. They're coming in all forms of sizes. How do we know to follow? Gdolei Ador. Why? Torah says so. Torah said, you follow my Gdolim. You don't go right or left without them. You'll have my protection. I will fight the war for you. But if you don't listen, you're on your own. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Why? Why put ourselves in the hands of the enemy? Why make ourselves so vulnerable? Stop watching these videos. Stop sharing these links and these posters of this group of this and this group of that. Stop it. You're destroying neshamot. It's literally the equivalent of pornography. This coronavirus, a conspiracy theory, virus, vaccine, literally is now become the equivalent of idolatry and pornography combined. Idolatry and pornography combined. People are so enamored by it, so confused by it, they forgot HaShem runs the world. They forgot. Enough. Chalas already. We have Chachamim. Chachamim. What do they say? They say right, we go right. They say left, we go left. Yeah, what if I have both? What if I have some Chachamim say right, I have some Chachamim say left? Perfect. Pick whatever one you want. Pick whatever you want. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it easy for you. Pick whatever you want. But pick it because the Chacham said it. Not because you watch YouTube videos. Not because you watch YouTube videos. If you do it that way, you'll have the protection of the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fight for you. Chalas already with all of these reform opinions. Enough. We have to listen to the Chachamim. We listen to the Chachamim. We already won. We already won. Why? We have a mitzvah in our hands. A mitzvah in our hands that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised us. He will protect us because of this mitzvah. Or protect us with that mitzvah. Who's going to protect you for watching YouTube videos of some doctors? Who's going to protect you of wasting an hour and a half of your time of somebody mocking the Israeli or the U.S. government for their choices of vaccine, whether it's Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson? Who's gonna protect you because you are listening to all the conspiracy theories of the Kennedy family and the New World Order and the Freemasons and the Bilderbergers and the hamburgers? Who's gonna protect you because of that? Who? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is gonna protect you if you listen to His Torah. Listen to His Torah, listen to His Chachamim, you have nothing to worry about. You don't listen, you have everything to worry about. Your choice. Your choice. The price is not the same.
אני מברך את הרבנים, רגע. אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל מה שיפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכרו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.
בעזרת השם רשת בכל הארץ. הוא היהודי הזה, הוא היה מיליונר, סגר את כל הביזנס, אמר אני משקיע פה בעולמה של תורה.
איפה הוא גר?
בפלורידה.
פלורידה, איפה זה פלורידה? באמריקה.
במיימי. כן, ליד. אנחנו שם עכשיו הולכים להקים קהילה ספרדית.
חזק אותו בשמי.
קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
תעבירו מה שבירכתי אותו.
כן, קהילה ספרדית גדולה.